Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I started with a piece of Canson watercolor paper and I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending on that. I'm using a couple of different colors of Distress Oxide ink. On one half of the paper, I'm using cracked pistachio and peacock feathers, and on the other half, I'm going to use abandoned coral and candied apple. Now, I wasn't trying to blend the red and the green color in the middle. I knew that I was going to be cutting this up, and I really just wanted the green colors to blend together and the red colors to blend together. I sprinkled some clean water onto the paper with a paintbrush to reactivate that ink, and then I used a paper towel to soak it up. Next, I took out my Misty tool, and I'm going to be using the stamp set from Mama Elephant called Little Snowman Agenda. I stamped 4 of the really cute snowmen from that stamp set onto some Nina Solar White using my Gina K Amalgam ink. I did some very quick and easy Copic coloring on these snowmen. I find it really easy to color in snowmen because they're mostly white. I have my marker caps off to the side if you want to see what colors I used. For the actual snow on the snowmen, I shaded it with a really light blue color. I really have been liking the light blue for shading snow instead of using like a gray or something like that. I think that the blue gives it a really nice snowy feel. As for the rest of the coloring, when I first started this card, I had a color scheme in mind, which was gray, white, red, and like a turquoisey blue. So I really tried to keep the coloring to that color scheme. Next, I took another Mama Elephant stamp set and I stamped a sentiment from that with Versamark ink, and I embossed it with a silver embossing powder. I cut that sentiment down to a small strip, and then I adhered it onto a piece of Gina K slate cardstock, and then I cut that down so that there's just a small border around the edge. Okay, so the Distress Oxide piece that I did at the beginning of the video, I took that and I cut 4 squares out of it, and then I adhered those squares onto a square card base using some foam tape. I did use a T-square ruler to kind of help me place those squares so that I could make sure that they were lined up. I also used some foam tape to pop up that sentiment strip in the middle of the 4 squares. And of course, you know me, I really love dimensions, so I had to pop up the snowmen as well, so I used some foam tape to pop those up. Okay, so it took me a really long time to place these snowmen in a way that I liked them. I left the whole process in the video. I just sped it up really fast because I wanted to show you kind of an idea of what it looks like when I'm struggling with a card. So my biggest issue with the snowmen was when I was placing them, the ones on the bottom were really close to the sentiment strip and the ones on the top were really close to it. And I wanted them to be centered in the middle of their squares, but they really couldn't be without kind of awkwardly touching the sentiment. Luckily, I never pressed down on the foam tape so that it would fully adhere, because that allowed me to be able to move these without ripping the paper. So the way that I eventually fixed the problem was I removed all of the snowmen, and then I removed the sentiment strip, and I actually cut that border down so that it's even smaller and there's just a very tiny little bit of a border around the edge. And just getting rid of that little bit of the border allowed for me to place the snowmen in a way that I was happy. So it was at this point that I really realized that I wanted a little bit more detail and dimension to this card. So the way that I decided to do that was to cut that square in the middle down. I cut that right out of the card base, and then I adhered it onto a piece of vellum, and I cut that down so that there's a nice vellum border around it. And then I popped that up onto a new card base with some foam tape. It was a really subtle change, but because I didn't want to add any embellishments to this card, I think that that little bit of detail and dimension really adds to the overall design. And with that, this card is all done. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this card design featuring some Mama Elephant stamp sets. All of the supplies that I used today can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching and you have not become a subscriber to my channel yet, I'd encourage you to hit that subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I'm going to be back with a new video on Friday. Again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.